On today's show, we finally find out what Elon Musk thinks about the glorious cover drive. We're also finding out the top rankings in Sydney grade cricket for some reason. Hey, keep politics out of sport. Keep it out of it. So we have Todd Greenberg on the show to talk about the future of cricket whilst also keeping politics in sport. Hey, the Australian and India squads have been announced for that series in next month. Prithvi Shaw hit 379. He's not in it. Nor is Sarfaraz Khan, who averages 80 in first-class cricket. Todd Murphy is in, as is Todd Sampson, apparently, in my mind. Adam Zampa is not in the squad. He's not happy about that. Hey, Nathan Ellis took a hat-trick. Joe Clark hit the roof in the BBL. That's, of course, before we get into the Amazon doco, the Test Season 2. JL isn't in the show, but he still seems to be the main talking point. Hey, Meg Lanning returns to the Australian side, but the Bangladesh under-19 side beat the Australian women at the under-19 World Cup. What the fuck is that? What? I don't feel safe anymore. That's all before we get into hashtag AskTGC, where we ask the main questions of how do we get women to sleep with us. This episode is brought to you by Budgy Smuggler. Use the code CHAMP at budgysmuggler.com.au. if that is your preference. My name is Ian Higgins. Sam Perry is keeping politics out of sport, but he's also most interested in the top rankings of, that's even the Boyd ranking, of course, in Sydney grade cricket.
Mate.
You're fascinated. You're reading articles about it now.
I'm just being honest about it. I mean, everyone's fascinated about it, but this is the nature of grade cricket. This is why the grade cricketer exists. It's in literally just giving voice to the voiceless.
I mean, they're on TV now and they've got articles written in the Daily Telegraph about it these days.
Back in the day, the whole thing started because it was like, here is this fucking rich sociological phenomenon going on that no one's speaking about. You know, let's hold up a mirror, see what happens.
Right.
But and now it is really funny seeing, like, 2022 digital trends and like general media happenings overlaid with grade cricket, and to that end, to see an article the other day across News Corp's many publications,
right? Code
Sports, Daily Telegraph. Obviously, whoever's in charge of that went like, splash it across all of them, boys.
This has got to go. It's got to go.
I think the headline was top grade rankings Sydney grade cricket batters and bowlers. I mean, if that came out in 2006, well, obviously in the Broadway or the tabloid there, whichever one, my jaw would be on the floor.
I mean, there's some good players in it, to be fair.
as if you wouldn't be fucking buying the shit out of that.
Yep.
You get your news agency money, get your Travel 10 with that,
of course.
And then or your Travel Pass if you can afford that.
I'm buying Inside Edge.
That's right.
Yep.
Inside Edge. That's right.
Pack of gum.
That's right.
Trying to offset that with 4-pack of condoms.
Yeah, and
I've got a 4-pack of condoms and Inside Edge.
That's right. 4-pack of condoms, extra large. That's the smallest size. Get the ribbed ones.
Is there anything bigger with these?
Yeah.
Anything bigger than the extra large, please? I'm 14 and I'm packing.
Now, anyway, as if among those purchases,
Kerry packing,
you wouldn't be looking at having a look at Sydney grade rankings.
I'm having a look.
It really whet the appetite, and I was disappointed because it's obviously some kind of tie-in with Play HQ or whoever's doing the fucking stats these days, and it was literally just a list of top runs and averages. With batters, because rankings. I mean, fuck, you talk about grade cricket.
Like power rankings.
Rankings could mean lots of things.
Heaps of things.
Yeah. I go to George Bailey owns BFT, Body Fit Training. I go to that. They actually do a little what do you call it? Like it's some kind of equation that goes with your heart monitor up on screen where you
it's like a leaderboard, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of. It's like got your heart rate, but then it's actually overlaid with like your weight and your height and your previous intensity. So it's actually spinning out a number of like whether you're working hard or not.
Okay, so
basically
the output of working hard. Boys, are we working hard
but
here?
I'm saying, like, if you're doing grade rankings,
are you training hard enough?
You got to bring a few little layers into that beyond just runs on the field. So I thought it was thin layout of statistics,
just with batting and bowling.
But
numbers.
Even so, I did hear that there was about a class action of the grade cricket captains who tried to who asked for an injunction for this not to come out, but News Corp defeated it in the courts.
They've got some weight behind them, to be fair.
Yeah, I don't know if you're gonna have a class action and injunction at the same time. I doubt it.
So all the grade captains have got together for a class action.
Yeah, well, because some of them weren't hitting them that well. So.
Okay, no, talk about too many chefs.
Just savage though.
I mean, I want power rankings of like chops, sex stories generally, Friday night circuits, Saturday night circuits. Like,
What sort of acronym would that spell? Because in BFT, this isn't an ad for that, by the way, though I do enjoy it. PXI, I think it's like, oh, your PXI is this. I mean,
right.
And I start getting upset at the board. I'm like, I'm working hard, but the numbers aren't coming out for me. You know, you might be like, your body's out of form.
I like the idea of it being a BFT, like in the Masters leaderboard, like blokes, literally like a huge scoreboard where they actually take the names out.
It is like that at the end, though. Everyone's just got their own little space on the board while you're working, and then at the end, it creates a leaderboard, and there's fucking gold, silver, bronze stuff going on.
Yeah.
Don't think I'm looking at that. I'm 37 years old with 2 kids, and it still sets me off like I'm a child, you know?
I want to be the best.
That guy's not working hard. How's this?
Yeah. Fucking bullshit.
So that's what rankings is. That's going to trigger a lot of guys. And I did note in the Daily Telegraph, like someone just wanted the world to burn that morning because there was a picture of a player. I don't know this player, but I think he's going very well. His name's Dylan Hunter, and the caption reads: Dylan Hunter of Sydney University is being touted as a player to watch this season, accompanied with a picture of his middle stump getting fucking cartwheeled. Well, it's not in the process of cartwheeling yet, but it looks like it's about to go.
My main problem with that sentence generally is like he's a player to watch. That infers that people are watching grade cricket.
Well, it says being touted, and it's like touted by who as a player to watch?
Right, okay.
You know?
BBL scouts.
On KO. Anyway, I thought that needed an airing. Batters and bowl, but I think with just some advice to News Corp, if you're going to do some rankings of grade cricketers, like let's get a few little data points in there. It's a big data game.
Yeah.
There's a lot of data points you can get in there and actually spit out some very interesting rankings, not just sort of some aggregate stuff.
Chest, pipes, levers,
salad. This is my domain. He sort of got a bit flamboyant, that character.
Hey, gradecricketer.com for all your merch, your hats, your shirts, your playing shirts, your bucket hats, live show tickets, all that sort of thing, and more coming in 2023, gradecricketer.com. Hey, if you want to join us on Patreon, if you want to support TGC at patreon.com/gradecricketer, where our little community is happening over there for the rest of this month up until February 1st. That's how the Gregorian calendar works, generally speaking. 15% off your annual subscription. So you get 15% off if you sign up for an entire year at patreon.com.
Little offer for you there to have a look at.
Grade Cricketer. Patreon.com/gradecricketer.
So someone wrote to us, he goes, DM'd and said like, oh, a bit of business stuff, is it? And they're like, okay. Yeah. They're like, oh, and they said, oh, any price elasticity to that? And I was like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
But please buy it.
Yeah. Literally on the Patreon platform, the most you can give off is take off is 16%. So we're not being that generous, to be honest, with 15%. But
market forces and stuff.
At Patreon, well, exactly.
Wall Street.
Yeah, that sort of thing. The yen.
Yeah.
What's that big bull doing in the financial district in New York? That's what I want to know. Different to Dave Warner, that's a little bull. Anyway, so at Patreon, we obviously do hashtag AskTGC Fridays. Once you sign up to Patreon, by the way, you get full access to the entire back catalogue, which obviously includes the 3 episodes we put out a little while ago of the Hall of Fame, hashtag AskTGCs. We're also doing the dailies for India and Australia. There'll also be IPL dailies. There's also the World Test Championship. There's also the Ashes. There's also a 50-over World Cup this year. You're going to get all of that exclusive audio at patreon.com/Great Cricketer. If you sign up before the end of this month, you're going to get 15% off your annual subscription. All right, Pez, just fucking keep politics out of sport, mate. I've had enough for me. Australia's pulled out of the Afghanistan ODI series. It's going to be a 3 ODI series in March, played in the UAE. CA have cited the Taliban's decision to further restrict women's ability to attend schools, employment opportunities, and go to parks and play sport and whatnot. So the Taliban recently banned teenage girls from schools and forbade women from attending universities in Afghanistan, which sparked global backlash. So the Afghan Cricket Board have labelled CA's decision as pathetic in their official statement. They said they're going to write to the ICC officially. I'm sure it's going to do heaps of stuff. Rashid Khan tweeted, and I quote, "I'm really disappointed to hear that Australia have pulled out of the series to play us in March. I take great pride in representing my country, and we have made great progress on the world stage. This decision from CA sets us back in that journey. If playing against Afghanistan is so uncomfortable for Australia, then I wouldn't want to make anyone uncomfortable with my presence in the BBL." There's also 3 current players and 1 former player, all from Afghanistan, tweeted various things, all with the wording specifically of keep politics out of sport. Thoughts?
Oh, where do you want to start? I mean, to keep politics out of sport is plainly wrong. It's just a slogan. It's empty. Politics is in sport. It's it's interwoven with sport. It's no choice. It'd be harder to separate it from sport if you tried. I mean, look at this Daily Telegraph article, for example.
Yeah, but what they were really saying is keep politics out of sport when it doesn't suit me.
Yeah, look, I don't want to.
I don't like it.
Look, I hardly think Rashid Khan should be the target for that kind of for criticism of that stupid slogan that's just weaponized when it's convenient for people. But so as for that, yeah, that's. I think we can just push that to the side. It's not even worth debating. Like keep politics out of sports. It's what dumb fuck would say.
Yes,
politics is in sport whether you like it or not. As for this, it's gee, I'm sitting in a South Melbourne studio and I'm just wearing some shorts and I've been to the gym and am I just about to start spitting about government consultation on playing against Afghanistan?
Right.
Am I going to start spitting about some Taliban stuff? The thing, I want to contribute a few things. One, I think ODI cricket sucks anyway.
Good point.
So, but that's not the point. I do question whether or not Australia's playing or not playing of that game makes any change to the regime or the geopolitical state of play.
Or the ICC rankings.
Yeah. I suppose it would have rankings issues. It's interesting. I think it's Gideon Haigh wrote a scorching article in The Australian over the weekend criticising the move. And I mean, he essentially in a very elegant and eloquent way,
as always,
explained why it was mere virtue signalling. And I think the line was that it was just done to launder a few queasy liberal consciences, sorry, which I thought was a pretty cool line. But on the other hand, Taliban, so it's a bit of Taliban gear knocking around.
Yeah, that's true.
And I do wonder, we've talked to Todd Greenberg a couple of days ago about this. Was fresh.
I think it was the night before.
Yeah, it had happened the night before. We talked to him the next day.
Yep.
So it was fresh. So we asked him pretty straight questions. He just said his bit about it. I'm sort of, I think it's kind of cool to question, is probably to question who CA might have consulted with and whether it's a convenient position because a couple of players probably aren't that keen to go to the UAE anyway.
Sure.
Or whatever, cynical view. I'm kind of inclined to trust CA did take serious advice about it, not just from the government, but from potentially even female players, which is what this ultimately concerns.
I was gonna say
seems to be a bit forgotten.
Why don't we ask some women? Why don't we ask some women about it? It does seem to be a couple of fucking blokes standing around being like, oh, let's try and figure out what's right for them. Let's try and figure out what's right for them. Is this a good thing? Why don't we just ask some women now? You may recall, Pez, that the Taliban were in charge of Afghanistan from 96 till 2001. And then I don't really remember what happened in September in that year, but things changed. And then since then, so the Taliban, they use Sharia law, which is
oh shit, we're about to get a bit of knowledge. Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure there's a punchline coming to the end of this. And so some of that Sharia law is pretty it includes public floggings, public executions, dismemberment, that sort of thing. Just recently they have banned music. So there's a folk singer from Afghanistan who was dragged from his home and killed because they don't like a couple of beats kicking about. Don't like a team song.
How are you going to do this without getting this into grade terminology? It's going to be hard.
But I think
so you're saying there's a bit going on.
I think there's a bit going on, and I think fundamentally, why don't we just ask some women about it? But I guess CA's decision to pull out of this series, mate. I mean, I think what this really boils down to is I'm driving over here and I'm looking at the price of fuel, and it's $2.20 a barrel, $2.20 a litre, and I'm thinking maybe we should go over there, sort out some democracy over there because it's getting pretty expensive. And I'm looking at my European holiday coming up this year. Flights are expensive because of the cost of fuel. Now, if
sort out some democracy so I can get a bit of fuel in the old fucking.
That's right. Me old jumbo jet there. a couple of weeks in Greece. That must be nice for me. That's what I'm thinking. Now, if fuel was $1.40 a litre, I'm thinking that Australia's going. $2.20, we're not going over there. I think it's fairly obvious that if petrol was cheaper, we'd be playing 3 ODIs in the UAE against Afghanistan. That's all I'm saying. I think it's fairly obvious.
And just to prove that we can, walk in both worlds, like one of the other, the big... So they got a bit of Sharia law knocking about, and I'd actually reckon there's a bit...
Yeah.
It's one of those questions with this, isn't it? Like, what is the power of a boycott, Jeff boycott? And by boycotting, do you bring these issues into the light so things happen?
Yeah.
Or does it actually push these issues, all those experiences to the margins and to the darkness? Or as Gideon kind of points out, does it not make any difference at all?
I mean, are the Taliban being like, oh, what, Kamo's not rolling in, is he?
Yeah.
Fucking hell. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Exactly those words.
Australia has fucked off Afghanistan several times in recent years. This is before the Taliban took over. Do you remember those scenes, man, of people like trying to get out of the country? Like after America left, after the US forces or the Allies left, it was fucking shocking. Like people were trying to like jump on planes and stuff, getting out of the country.
Yes.
That's when the US left and the Taliban took over. That was in, I want to say like September, maybe August last year, something like that. It's hard to, I mean, to your point, like how much does it make? I mean, the Taliban, as if they're going to give a fuck about Australia playing 3 ODIs against them, is that going to make any difference? But then you read stuff like there's like female Olympic athletes from Afghanistan who are in hiding because they've received multiple death threats, that kind of stuff. So it's like, fundamentally that's why I'm like,
I wouldn't be surprised.
Why don't we ask some women?
I wouldn't be surprised if Cricket Australia consulted women widely. I don't know that for a fact. I just wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I do think that I don't think we're talking about a really cynical decision that's simply born of like a bit, not enough bunts and it being inconvenient. Though those things may be true, I do think it's a little bit of it's an adult issue.
Yeah. Well, I also find it hard to separate the idea as like, it's not India, but what if it was? How bad would it have to be for Australia to pull out of, because like, financially, like that is also in my head, but I don't know.
I think it's all, it's all a raw exercise of power. There are different stakeholders across the entire ecosystem of it. Geopolitically, sports administrations, Afghanistan has its own standing, and all of that power gets exercised. It's a zero-sum game. So Australia probably is in a powerful position vis-a-vis Afghanistan. Got to retire it.
Can they get on the front foot to them, Pez?
Yeah,
is that what they can do?
And it is probably it's not simply a virtue signaling moral position. It is an exercise of power too that does suit Australia.
Yeah.
Which is, I think that side of it probably irks when it comes to how many people who are cricket lovers want to see countries like Afghanistan, who are doing so well, who are growing, gave us a massive game in the World Cup. We only just got past them.
Yep.
To see them grow, so it really feels like one step forward, 10 steps back, and we're part of that. And so I can understand why people are irritated by it. It does feel like it's a multifactorial, complex issue. I am inclined to trust Cricket Australia's consultation and judgment on it.
I should say as well, like
some shorts on here. Just went to a BFT class just to chuck that out there. Of course, like Rashid Khan and the other Afghani players sort of, criticise this or, very disappointed about it. I can understand their perspective as well, because I'm sure a lot of them would look at the Taliban leading their country and be like, that doesn't represent me. Yep.
And that's not fair either. So I don't know. But then, look, I don't know. The more you read about the Taliban and their treatment of women specifically, and just Sharia law generally, it's pretty how you going.
I mean, speaking of female voices, Rachel Haynes, let's just read something she said for that purpose. She said there hasn't been a lot from those female voices and perhaps those past players in that team. I'm sure for them it's incredibly difficult to watch their men's side play at times and know that is something they're not able to do. And we see the Under-19s World Cup on at the moment, and the same example again, those girls are not able to be there and participate in that. And look, that's just a quote in and of itself. I'm not sure what context that was in, but I think those voices are important.
Oh, there's also some bit of comments being like, well, what if Australia plays against Afghanistan in the World Cup? It's like, oh, fuck, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up, you dopey fucking...
We just got to get through Rashid Khan, I'd say.
All right, we spoke to Todd Greenberg, who is the CEO of the Australian Cricketers Association, or the ACA, if you will, different from a current affair, which used to be hosted by Tracy Grimshaw. She's not on the show this week. So we had a chat with Todd Greenberg, a wide-ranging chat about the future of cricket. We obviously spoke about this situation that was fresh off the press. Is that how you say it? Whatever, I've said it now, too late. And it was a really good chat from someone who's in the know. So
hot off the press.
Hot off the press. Thank you very much for that. But before then, let's thank our friends Budgy Smuggler. And great news, Pez, photo of the year is back.
Oh, hell yeah.
At Budgy Smuggler. So what you got to do is you got to tag Budgies at Budgy Smuggler or at Smugglets in your smuggling pics to go into the running to be in their photo of the week, month or year. Okay, we've got, and they've got ultimate smuggling prizes up for grabs. Pez, first prize, if you take a photo, you tag those tags, is you get a picture emblazoned on a billboard. You get 2.5K Budgy voucher. You get $1,000 cash. That's straight bunts into your hip pocket there. You get VIP access to key Budgy events, e.g. your ordinary rigs, that sort of thing. And you get free express shipping until 2024. Not bad. Not bad. That's Budgy Smuggler's photo of the year.
They're great at a visual, Budgy, aren't they? It's
great.
It's really nice on the eyes.
Very nice on the eye.
And I like the way they market it. Anyone can get around a Budgy, involved in a Budgy. And then sometimes it is nice on the eyes as well. I think the balance is nice.
Sure.
I think the balance is good. And Budgy, we're going to talk about Amazon, the test doc later.
Yes, we are.
Everything is just morphing into Brad Hodge chat. We're going to talk about the test doc there.
He's the best, Hodgie.
And it's just incredible how often Budgies just turn out, like just turn up on people's asses.
That's true. We saw a number of instances where Budgies were being Alex Carey obviously wearing the great TGC. These were wearing TGC smugglers.
That was limited edition. Linny was like, I'm not sure we're selling many of them, boys. He asked us to put a design together. We went on PowerPoint and stitched it together. But it's got Alex Carey's jaw.
After he got hit in the World Cup.
That's right.
In 2019.
He wore them on his debut.
And so he was wearing those in the doco. And in episode 1, I think it was.
Episode 1, he's talking to Cummins about wanting to take his first catch in Test cricket, standing there in Budgies. In TGC limited edition Budgies. So
get around that. That's budgysmuggler.com.au. Hey, this interview is brought to you by T20 Stars. And as you know, anyone who is a friend of TGC is a friend of T20 Stars. You use the code TGC 15% off the full T20 Stars range. You can go to the website. There's even more discounts there.
I think you can get a bigger discount going on the website. But if you want to sort of show that you can to us, use TGC 15.
T20stars.com. I want to say .au. Can you check that for me right now? We're not to me there. I still haven't done that.
No. Oh yeah. I got to sort of get on top of that now. So no, let's work it out. I mean, it's only the 15th one we've done. T20stars.com. It will get you there, but does a .au get you there too?
Oh,
that's what you need to know. And you can't.
Wow. Okay.
Watto's global.
Put AU in the bin. Fuck, I can't talk.
But not unless you. But if you want to go to Shane Watson. That's ShaneWatson.au. Get rid of the com.
Yeah, that's where you can buy his book, Winning the Inner Battle, which he sold a number of copies at our second Sydney Live show.
Helps you get out of your own way.
That's true. Anyway, T20stars.com, ShaneWatson.au are your two options. If you want T20 Stars kit, you go to T20stars.com. Don't go to ShaneWatson.au. That's where you get Winning the Inner Battle. All right, here's Todd Greenberg.
All right, we're joined in studio by the CEO of the Australian Cricketers Association, or the more like tabloid description I prefer, players boss, Todd Greenberg. As we steer towards the end of the summer, it's a special opportunity for us to deep dive and test some of our thoughts on some of the bigger issues in Australian cricket, some of the meatier issues, particularly in relation to the future of the game. Todd, thanks for joining us.
Well, last time I spoke to you, I was in Pakistan, so it's good to see you in person. And players boss, I think it's the other way around, isn't it? Aren't the players my boss? So
I suppose so.
Should be. Is it boss players? I don't know.
Well,
anyway,
that's what a good boss would say.
Either way.
Yeah. Well, we'll start with the most important question, Todd. Looks like Cricket New South Wales was joined with the North Sydney Bears to assist the Bears' return to the NRL.
She's really hit the big issues early, haven't you?
You'd have to concede the Bears are an unstoppable juggernaut now. No, all right. As we record, this is a Friday. We're recording this a couple of days before I think we're going to publish. But news dropped late yesterday that Cricket Australia have announced they've pulled the men's team from the ODI tour to Afghanistan amid concerns over deteriorating women's rights in the Taliban-ruled country. And they've done so after extensive consultation with government. Were you part of those discussions, and how do you determine when like a country's sovereign position on these social and cultural issues becomes so problematic as to make like a cricket fixture untenable?
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking to them along the way, and interestingly, Cricket Australia also went and spoke to their independent ethics commissioner as well, which I think is really important. I don't think it's a surprising decision. It sort of aligns with exactly why the test match in Tasmania maybe 12 months ago was cancelled. So, you know, you stand for nothing or you stand for something. And I think on this occasion it won't please everyone, but I think it's the right decision and probably the only decision we can make.
Rashid Khan overnight has posted and said words to the effect of like, well, you know, if Australia's uncomfortable with playing Afghanistan, then I'm uncomfortable in the BBL. You know, how do you manage that conversation?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. As I said, sometimes when you make key decisions, it doesn't please everyone. But I think I had this conversation with you guys last time I was here, is leadership's not about popularity. You got to make some decisions and you got to get them what you think is right, and then you've just got to be prepared to wear a few bullets along the way. This is one of those where you make a key decision, you do it for the right reasons. Some people are going to disagree with you, and some people will have a pot shot at you. That's cool. That's what leadership's all about. So if you're looking to please everyone and get consensus on every decision, you probably need to find another job.
Have other countries pulled out of series against Afghanistan yet, or has Australia been the first one to do that?
That's a good, fair question. I don't know the answer to that. I get a sense Australia have had a pretty defined position from start to finish, and this is no different. So when you get tested on the decision, you go back to what your values and your moral compass was, and you stick to it. And again, Australian government have been in on that. The whole board of Cricket Australia have been on board with it, and so have the players. So again, it doesn't please everyone, but you have a defined position, you stick to it, you articulate it. Righto, what's next?
What do you, maybe more broadly, and like I've got my own view on this as well, but like there'll be people in Australia, there'll be people overseas. I know the current former Afghani players are sort of saying this. Like, what do you say to people who just come back with that, tired trope of like keep politics out of sport, and maybe more, in a more detailed way? It's funny saying that on a great cricket show. I mean, politics are fucking everywhere, selections, but like, what do you say to those who are like, look, this is, the government's been involved. This is political overreach.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone who says politics and sport don't mix, I mean, there's more politics in sport than there is in politics. And so I can say that with some conviction. But
it'd be amazing if you could keep it out. I don't know how.
Would we consider sending the Prime Minister's 11 to play against Afghanistan?
Exactly.
Hey, there's an idea. It's novel. But I actually think this is less about politics. When someone says in their own country that women can't exercise and go to parks, I mean, I don't know if that's political. I actually think that's just a values-based discussion. And as I said before, you got to stand for something. So I get this one will sound political, but I just think it's a values-based decision.
Well, should we talk about the BBL? I want to talk about the BBL.
Geez, there's a change.
Can we go? Politics.
Geez, you're branching.
It stands for the Big Bash League, doesn't it?
That's right. To catch in terms of, the reason we wanted to talk to you was because we've been probably banging on. Maybe listeners might feel that's been the case, or that's the right term for it. Like all summer about this sense that there are some global macro changes in cricket happening, but cricket in Australia still feels like it's trying to kind of do the same thing. And you're the only executive, I think, who's come out and addressed it and made some comments about that. So I just want to read a comment that you made a few weeks ago on the ABC. You said, I'm particularly worried about Test cricket in the future. It may not be this generation, but there's no doubt the next generation may not love the game in the format or in that format as much as we want them to. It's a very big challenge because in that expansion of global T20 leagues, there's an enormous amount of money being made and available for players to play. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think we can have both, but it is on a precipice at the moment, in my view. So I'm glad you called that out because I don't think anyone else is talking about that. I get the impression that Australian cricket fans sense the winds are changing, but we'd like everything to stay the same. So maybe my first question is, like, what do you mean when you say it is on a precipice?
Yeah, well, interesting hearing back your own comments because I was just actually nodding my head saying that's very good. Then realised it was me. So well played. I genuinely think we are on a precipice, and what I mean by that is that the concept that when I was a boy, you got to October and then you started to watch cricket through to March and then you stopped watching cricket, and you watched footy and then the cricket came back on again. That doesn't happen. So that's number one. You're watching cricket 12 months of the year. Number two is our players have significant choice now. So what I mean by that is they don't just seek a central contract with their state or their country. They now have private entrepreneurs all over the world sourcing their talent. So they've got choice. And that choice creates commercial leverage and opportunity for them. Now, some people listening to this will say they either don't like that or they don't agree with that. And that might be their prerogative, but it's actually happening. So if you're a talented cricketer, you've got choice of where you play and ply your trade. So we have to be careful of that. And so if you're like me and you're a lover of red ball cricket and you want Test cricket in Australia to be strong, we have to make sure that we give every opportunity for our players when they do deals and discussions to want them to stay here, because they won't just stay here by choice. And they won't just happen by chance that they're going to stay and just continue to play in a traditional sense. Because let's face it, at the moment there's a T20 league in South Africa on the way. The UAE is about to kick off. The BBL's here. The 100 will be there next year. There's talk of a US league starting. It is happening 12 months of the year. And there are big dollars being invested in the T20 league. So to think that a player will just say, oh no, I'm just going to stay here and play in the traditional sense of the game, I think is fanciful. And so it's happening around us. So the reason I made those comments was to acknowledge the fact that those challenges are on us. I don't have all the answers, but I'm happy to have debates about how we can ensure that Australia remains competitive.
Can I put something to you on that? When you couch all of that, you say what we're used to is basically a footy season and a cricket season, right? Wherever you are in Australia. I mean, I would argue that like the cricket season is shrinking in people's interests because footy grows. You look at the World Cup, I'm not sure we turned up as much as we thought we might. The next thing you say is that like you acknowledge that players, we need to do something to incentivise players to keep that structure going. But could I put it to you, like we need to flip it? Like we need to take fans and audiences on a journey that those seasons are no longer. We used to be able to control that when Packer did World Series cricket, and we invited everyone out here, and we did it on our terms. But Australia ain't in charge anymore.
No, you're completely right.
And so how do you take fans, for want of a better cliche, on a journey that we follow? That cricket will be followed and played differently.
Yeah, it's really hard because the domestic winter sports, their distinct advantage is that appointment viewing, that regular weekend, their team, that fans know when their team's playing, they understand the structure of the season, and they understand how finals and grand finals played. So there's a start and finish, and there's a rhythm for that season. I mean, frankly, if you're a cricket fan, I think our structure looks like a Supreme Pizza. Like literally, it's impossible to figure out why and when and how those structures are playing. And so, you know, when I watched England play those 3 games after the World Cup in Australia last year, I mean, fair income. How hard was that to watch? Imagine playing it for them after winning a World Cup. And that's going to continue to happen. And so don't get me wrong, I'm not being critical of how that has transpired, but what I'm critical of is from a fan's perspective, how do they follow that? And is there a better way? And maybe I'm a bit naive, having come into cricket from outside, I had always thought and assumed the ICC as the global governing body would have structure and oversight of the global schedule. Well, that's just not the case. They're openly happy to admit that they're a members organisation that work on behalf of members, but they're not overseeing the global schedule. That's just not how it works. Bilateral series are run, negotiated between countries. So in the absence of the global governing body having a macro view of what the game looks like, well, I'm sort of sitting on here on behalf of the players saying, well, let's have a voice here. Let's try to create some discussion, see if we can find a few solutions ourselves, because otherwise we are going to wake up with another generation who won't love Test cricket like we do. And I want to make sure we've got an ability to shape some of that.
With this year, when the Ashes are played, they're going to be finished by August, earliest the Ashes have ever finished, and that's because they've created their own window for the 100. The 100 must be played. Now, like we've been discussing for a while, like surely Australia's best players have to be playing in our domestic T20 competition, which
for the entirety of the league.
For the entirety of the league, not just a couple of games here and there. So, like, is there a possibility maybe at the end of this Future Tours program, which is probably a separate question about how much of a future the Future Tours program has, to like be, okay, maybe the test summer might be October to December, then Big Bash is December to February or something. I mean, is that something that is practical, do you think?
Well, have you guys had a look at next year's summer schedule? Have you had a close look at what happens next year? The test matches will be running through to the end of January next year.
Perfect.
So, you know, the concept of having our test cricketers play in the Big Bash next year won't be possible.
Right.
Now, I suppose the real question you've got to ask yourself is, as we've got 3 formats, why are we so preoccupied with having our test players play in the T20 BBL? Maybe there's a future where they are completely separate.
Right, okay.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And this is sort of part of the evolution of the discussion is we need to continue to challenge ourselves about the structural part of cricket, because at the moment it's very hard to follow. Is there a way that we can have input? And when I say we, the players, because the players talk about this actively. Players are really interested in this. Players are really engaged in the future of the game. And whilst I say we don't have all the answers, we think that there's a conversation worth having here, because in the absence of it, it's happening around us and it's going to keep happening.
Yeah.
You mentioned that it would be handy if there was a global organisation with oversight and maybe a spirit of custodianship that actually moved the chess pieces of the game in a coherent way.
Yeah.
The closest we have to that is probably the BCCI, right? in some ways, and it strikes me that the game, irrespective of our nation's commitment and connection to Test cricket, is manoeuvring the game with the IPL to be a domestic franchise first game. That's in terms of the most amount of money that's available and the calendar that's being shaped and increasingly shaped for that. If it's the case that Australia is most interested in Test cricket, like doesn't Australia run the risk of being left behind in the kind of new world order of cricket? We already see South Africa basically manoeuvring their country to be a domestic franchise country. We see it with New Zealand. We may love Test cricket, but if we've got no one to play against...
Yeah, well, that's what I was about to say. You can't play against yourself.
So should it not also be on the table that Australia needs to read the tea leaves, and there might be a strategic reset to make the apex of Australia's cricket white ball, as heinous as that seems to people of our age and older? If that is where the game is going, as led by India, what is the executive view on that?
Yeah, it's a question that is, I think, will get more difficult to answer in the years ahead. And if you look at, people call it the big 3, whether that's England, Australia, and India, and those bilateral series that are very valuable for all those commercial investors. You could also argue that we're actually complicit to the problems of the
100%.
global game by ensuring that the New Zealands and the Pakistans, I listened to the South African captain's comments that, he's literally not playing a series of more than 2 test matches in the next 5 years. Now, we're complicit to that problem because we're so concerned about driving revenues, as we should be. But is there a way that we can reinvest some of that into some of these developing countries to ensure that we've got a broader base of competitors to play against? It's got to be in our interest to have the West Indies and Pakistan and South Africa strong. Has to be in our interest. Now, I understand all the merits that they may be loss leading in playing Test cricket, but again, it's incumbent on us to try to find some answers. And again, players are engaged on this. Players don't want to just play against a small number of countries in Test cricket. They want to make sure it's the preeminent game. So the decisions we make now will have impacts in 10 and 20 years. One thing I know working in sport over a long period of time is short-term thinking. Everyone thinks short-term. And there's a reason for that, because boards are popularly elected and executives are worried about their roles and all this sort of thing. So short-term thinking ends up short-term margins. Playing the long game, genuinely investing at the start to get return, maybe way beyond your own tenure, is hard for people in sport to do. But that's how cricket. That's why the women's game's so strong, because the pioneers back 10 and 15 years ago spent money, invested now, and we're seeing the return on investment now. A lot of those people aren't here, but they deserve credit for what they did.
just think about like the windows that are created. So like the Caribbean Premier League have their own window. The 100 has its own window, and of course the IPL has its own window. And the Big Bash
Might have two soon.
That's right.
Plus a women's IPL.
That's plus women's IPL, exactly. Yeah, I think the auction for that's in February, which would be interesting. But like Australia's had the Big Bash for how long's the Big Bash been going for? 15 years, something like that.
A little bit less than that.
Maybe a little bit less than that. But like, and now, literally as of today, because the international league T20, what's the UAE league called? Whatever that one's called, the international league. That starts today.
Yep.
The Bangladesh Premier League's on at the moment.
Yep. South Africa,
the SA20, thank you, and the Big Bash is on at the same time.
Yeah.
So like, first of all, I suppose what I'm asking is like, how sustainable is it to have 5 leagues on at the exact same time? Where like, you know, Faf as an example plays a few games for the Scorchers and then goes to South Africa, right? And also like, how come CA haven't just like monopolised this window where like it's the Australian summer and like I suppose New Zealand's got their Super Smash going on at the same time. I guess I don't know what's happening over there, but like
I'm across all of it actually.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
it's hard to understand, right? So you guys are deeply ingrained in the cricket culture.
Yeah,
you still can't describe what's going on at the moment.
Yeah,
you know. And I had a coffee with CRISTIAN yesterday, who's about to fly out shortly to,
of course,
UAE.
Yeah.
And I think Marcus Stoinis is going as well at some point as well. And the earning capacity for these guys over there is equivalent in a very short space of time to almost the value of their central contract.
Yeah.
So you can understand the commercial leverage that is play here.
Right.
So there are big headwinds facing us.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would have really appreciated hearing what you said earlier, Todd, about the idea that, you know, England, Australia and India may have been complicit in the shrinking of international cricket with the way that they've used resources. I don't think it's often that you hear an executive, I know your player's boss or they're your boss, whatever, how you want to say it, executive acknowledge that kind of thing. A lot of people, you know, I'm sure you'll have heard this, but a lot of people have suggested you in dispatches about a potential future leader of Australian cricket or Cricket Australia. With you acknowledging that, is that to say that, you know, if you were to take a role like that, or if you were in charge hypothetically, you know, you would look to influence to better redistribute funds in the game to bring other international nations, you know, back into cricket?
Well, first of all, I'm loving working with the players. So I've worked for the governing body in a different sport. And let me tell you, I sleep a lot better working for the players than I did working for the governing body. So I'm very, very happy doing what I'm doing. Okay. In fact, I don't think I've enjoyed working in the last 12 months more than at any time in my career. So it's been great fun.
Hard to get, I like it.
And really rewarding. Really rewarding.
Everyone's got a price.
I suppose what I'm really getting at is that in the absence of the global governing body or a members organisation, the ICCR, whose responsibility is it to have these conversations and make these suggestions? And I think we've got a role to play. We're not the only person that should be talking about it, but again,
the ACA.
You said before, the ACA, well, there's no one else, so let's have a crack about it. And I'm talking to our players about it, and they're pretty interested to see what we can do. So, you know, there'll be people who'll listen to this and go, "Guys, an idiot. Why would you suggest that?" But if we've got developing nations who aren't ready or aren't playing the quality of Test cricket, and we've got a plethora of great players, why aren't we looking at things like transfer systems or loan systems for that? Why aren't we using our domestic system to give international players in other countries opportunities to play here? Are there different ways we can look at it? It's so traditional the way Test cricket's structured. We're going to have to make some changes to the structure of it to keep it alive in the future. And again, I don't have all the answers, and some of the ideas that I'll throw up will be shouted down and they'll be idiot ideas, but there might be a little gem in there occasionally that we can actually work on. And it's going to take some time and money and long-term strategic thinking in order for us to solve some of these issues.
And just on that, to pick up on what you said before, it has always struck us that part of the difficulty with sustaining something like Test cricket, which is long-form, slow food, completely anachronistic to the trends of media consumption and entertainment consumption, it requires leadership that has a level of custodianship and almost kind of morals and ethics beyond the bottom line.
Yeah.
And you called this out earlier. I mean, if there is just a general, and you are one of these executives, like if there's a reinforcing system of guys who come into roles for 2 to 3 years, do what they've got to do, deliver on the bottom line and move on, how can we even have a structure where people come into roles and go, look, we might need to take a hit, we might need to invest for 10 years, 20 years, actually feel a little bit of pain to get this thing back on track? I mean, how do you fix that? You can't go to people and say, with their own families and their own scenarios and say, no, you're going to have to look like you've done a shit job money-wise because we're looking at something longer.
Yeah, no, it's true. And ultimately, that's what I think great governance looks like, and what leadership looks like in any vocation is you outlive some of the decisions that you make, and you have to move on. But that's, you hear this fantastic saying, everyone says, oh, I'm going to leave it in better shape than I found it. Sometimes the definition of that is well beyond your own tenure.
Yeah. So you may leave it immediately in worse shape as it seems.
Yeah, but history will judge it later on down the track.
Interesting.
So, players have got some skin in the game here too, because, I stood in front of all the Australian players just near the World Cup, and I had a long conversation with them. And I said to them, the only one thing that's more certain than the sun comes up tomorrow is every one of you guys will be former players one day. So I was talking to them about our former players program and why taking some money at the moment and paying for things for former players is important, because one day they'll be one of those and they'll be saying thank you to the current group. So we're doing all these things like heart health assessments for former players, and we're investing money into their well-being and development, because they're the people that dug the well originally. And our players, let's face it, have very strong remuneration. They work in very good conditions, and that's been borne about to those who came before them. So the concept of paying it forward all the time is really important. The conversation we're having here about investing back in Test cricket is exactly the same, because history tells you things go around in a circle sometimes and then almost come back to the same point. So while things may be changing now, if we don't make some investment, some long-term decisions, it'll get away from us and it's almost impossible to fix. So I stand by the comments that you read at the beginning. I am worried about Test cricket, and the players are worried about it. The ACA board's worried about it. So we want to have conversations. Again, I'm not sitting here saying this is what we should do. I've got every idea known, but it's a conversation worth having, because Test cricket has been around for a long time. People will say it's come and gone, and there's always been people who may be death riding it. But we're in an era now with 3 formats and a lot of private money coming into world cricket. This conversation's an important one.
I'm going to ask you about private money in a second. I mean, are you willing, I know you just mentioned very briefly things like transfer systems and stuff like that. Are you willing to share some of those ideas, idiot or otherwise? Or
I just get a sense that, if you just look simply at the West Indies as an example, we watched them play this year. We would all say, without being disparaging, they weren't great, and they need some help. So what help can we do? What can we do as Australian cricket to help them? Because whilst we always want to beat them, don't we want to see them be strong and competitive?
Yeah, it's sort of like, we don't want to beat them too well, but then they get good and we'll get upset. So
and that's this sort of strange phenomenon that I sit in, because I want our players to win. I want them to do well. And, maybe the easy option here is to sit back and just clap us when we keep winning. But I'm thinking way beyond that and thinking to myself, don't we want the West Indies to be strong? And if we want them to be strong, who's doing something about that?
Well, what can we do?
What can we do?
Well, do you have some? Well, we keep asking the question. What's the answer?
Let's imagine there was a pool of investment that came centrally out of the ICC that said, we're going to take 10 or 20 of their best developing players and bring them into our domestic system for a period of time, and they can come under our tutelage and our high performance environments, and they can learn more potentially from our systems than theirs, and then put them back in that system.
Play a bit of grade cricket as well.
Potentially, come on your podcast,
start them in
learn a
twos.
lot. Or the other way around, maybe we can send some of our great aspiring coaches and high performance managers and embed them in their systems and try to help them lift their own standards. A player transfer system where players who are on the verge of Test cricket, is there a way that we can help them shape the future of their tournaments and their playing strength? I don't know the answers, but
you're saying Michael Neser will play for the West Indies?
Well, that's a headline that I don't want to be written. So, they're your words, not mine. But maybe players at the end of the very back end of their career, when they're starting to go into, say, the T20 leagues, why aren't we trying to incentivise those players to contribute into other developing countries? So it's a conversation that's not being had.
Yeah, I
think it should be had.
It's kind of funny. Think about like imagine like if JL got loaned out to the Windies while he was playing or something.
He'd still about 4 for them.
Yeah,
And score runs.
And score runs, exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just asking about the Big Bash. I'm not sure if you know, but like some sort of background about how important financially the Big Bash is from like, you know, paying the players all the way down to grassroots. How important is the Big Bash in terms of the whole picture financially for Cricket Australia?
Very important. Yeah, very, very important. It's an important league.
Like in terms of percentage, you have like a...
Would you say golden goose?
Yeah.
Well, it's a big part of the commercial revenues, and equally it's a big part of the strategy to get the next generation of kids engaged with the game, boys and girls. Right. So it's a really important component, which is why I was so strong last year, saying we want our best players playing in the BBL. There's no surprise that any of the great leagues in world sport, NFL, EPL, there's one thing they have in common. The very best athletes play in those leagues. And there's one reason why some leagues struggle all over the world, because they got, let's face it, tier 2 and tier 3 players playing. And I'm not going to call out any particular league, but there are some ones that just people don't follow because they don't have the best players. I don't want us to be like that. I want us to have the best players playing. And then the thing about having the best players playing is you get the best product. You get the very best, highest quality competitiveness at the top. And every player I talk to want to test themselves in the best environment, under the most pressure. That's where they want to play their cricket.
I don't suspect you're just going to like wholeheartedly agree with this, but I thought that when we hosted the World Cup in October, I with the best players coming out, with international level stakes, that Australians would get behind it and attend those games and watch on TV more than we did. A lot of reasons for unders attendance or consumption were proffered. Some were silly, being off the team and things like that, and underperformance. But, it occurs to me that like it might be a little bit of a seasonal thing, but it also might be that like, is it possible that Australia and Australians have never really taken to T20 cricket in the way that other countries have? And if T20 is, quote unquote, the future of the game, is there something that needs to be addressed there as well? Because it just seems to be this undercurrent sitting there that like we never, really get behind it.
Yeah, it certainly felt like that earlier in the season as a kickoff. I mean, to be frank, the best game I went to was the India-Pakistan game at the G.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was the best game I've ever been to, I think.
It would be on the podium for me of the best sporting events I've ever been to. And I've been fortunate to go to Super Bowls and some other things. I walked out of the MCG last night. I just couldn't believe it when I walked out that night. Like I was cheering for India. It was next level. So
we were too for like YouTube. YouTube clicks.
It's good stuff.
It was a fantastic result for the YouTube channel.
But the question you asked is why did we go to that game and feel that level, and then go to another game and not feel that level? It's a really good question. Is it developed as much in the Australian fan psyche as it is potentially elsewhere globally?
And if not, how do you develop it in the psyche? Because I think we need to.
Yeah. And if it's not, what do we need to do? Or do we have a different level of focus here? I don't know the answer to that, but I think it comes back to the understanding of the fan, the cricket fan, and understanding how it all works together. Because at the moment, as I said, that it's bloody hard to understand.
Yeah, well, we've got a theory that like the Gregorian calendar is actually against Cricket Australia because like Christmas, New Year's, 2 weeks off work, Boxing Day test.
That's right. We chuck test cricket on then.
You got to have double headers, big bashes.
Yeah, that's right.
On Christmas Day, like the NBA.
Privatisation, you mentioned that before. Actually, no. Before we get into that, because I think it's linked. The broadcast rights deal. I'll try and summarise it. Like in simple terms, roughly the same money, maybe adjusted for inflation a bit less. Same broadcasters. Channel 7 picks up digital rights. The BBL shrinks. What do you think about the fact that the deal lasts for 7 years? As in we don't know what media is going to look like in 7 years and how people are consuming stuff. We don't know what cricket's going to look like in 7 years, but it strikes me as it's roughly the same deal as what was done in 2018. So by the time it ends, it's pretty much the same setup. That doesn't look to me like a, this is where the I don't know, like this is where the vision of cricket comes to manifest, right, of what cricket in this country is. But in 2031, it's going to be roughly the same structure as what it was in 2018.
Yeah.
Is that doesn't look to me like vision and evolution? What does it look like to you? You've got your head in your hands now.
It doesn't look. It looks like certainty and safety. And I'm not going to be critical of that at the early start because I'm not in those negotiations, so I didn't get an understanding of the types of conversations and the leverage and the pain points. But in part of me says, well, it's good to have certainty, but geez, if we're doing the same thing in 2031 that we're doing today in the same way and the same model, geez, we're going to be in some trouble, I would think. So there has to be some more innovation in part of that, and maybe there's some ways that we can do that inside that deal. So I haven't got under the real skin of this broadcast deal. We're about to do that as part of the MOU negotiations, but I think your summary is pretty accurate, relatively flat with inflation over this period of time. And the media landscape's changing. The way people consume, let's call it that. I mean, we used to watch TV. Now people consume.
Yeah, that's right.
All these fancy words. Yeah. But it's ultimately about the next generation, my kids and your kids, how they actually want to watch their cricket. And it is different. It's not going to be turning Richie on Channel 9. They don't do that. They don't think like that. So we've got to cater for that. We may not agree with it, nor may we like it, but that's what we have to deal with. So there's challenges there as well.
I was just thinking, if 7 Digital is kind of the new improvement or like element of the deal, if you want to pitch to the guys, maybe TGC does some commentary, watch-alongs, and that's you're in the studio here, you can see there's a couple of rooms, maybe get some of the players along as well.
I can see these salubrious surroundings here. I mean,
that's right.
I can see you broadcast from here, absolutely.
That's right. You're sort of joking. There's thousands of dollars of equipment here, but anyway, must be nice. But
if we can bring Richie back somehow. Some sort of,
exhume Richie better.
Exhume him,
anyway, it's neither here nor there. But you said, flat from a financial perspective. I think there's global headwinds with sports rights generally. Not every sport can be the AFL. Psycho people following it. But and to that end, like a week or so, Dan Brettig in the Nine papers, he reported that Morgan Stanley, the financial firm, is a consultant in CA discussions about privatisation. He says there's a working group that you're involved in. Firstly, is that right? Because my question's based on that. What would privatisation mean in a cricket context in Australia? Isn't CA a not-for-profit and there's taxpayer money? Can you even do that?
Yeah, well, privatisation means different things to different people. And so the short answer is, while a lot of this is commercial in confidence, yes, there are some conversations going at the moment between a variety of different parties, including us on behalf of the players, to consider, just like they are doing all over the world, whether private money and independent investment into a sport or into a segment of that sport or into an adjacency in the sport could be a good thing. So it's an open question. It hasn't been done in cricket, and cricket's a very traditional conservative game, but it has been done in other sports, in other parts of the world. And is that a good thing? Now, there are two components to this. One is the pure commercial transaction, but the other one is the people who you bring in through that investment bring innovation, they bring different ideas, they bring different thinking. Surely that's got to be a good thing for our sport if you have that type of level of investment, both in time and energy as well as cash. So the short answer is it's being developed as a concept. There's been no decisions made. And a lot of this will take time, but I don't think you can close the door to anything until you've asked enough questions to say yay or nay.
So that's one of the upsides of it. What would be the risks of a capital injection?
Yeah, well, the risks are that people don't usually put their money in unless they want a return.
Yes.
So you want to make sure, again, playing that long game, that you're protecting your sport. So those sorts of things are really important. But there are models that are all over the world. I mean, only in New Zealand with the All Blacks have we seen a commercial model which should grow their sport. And that's ultimately the decision you would make to do anything like this would be it has to have long-term benefit for the sport, not short-term, long-term benefit for the sport, not just for the players by you, the whole sport. So that's the real indicator.
It's interesting hearing about like the actual logistics if you're talking about what privatisation means, because I think privatisation has almost become this catch-all term of like, oh, just get some rich guy to buy some clubs, and then like, but if they're just going to lose money, then like the custodianship doesn't actually matter. So I actually hadn't thought about the quality of people that an owner might bring into something to actually develop the sport in that way. So it's interesting in that regard, because I just thought like privatisation, but what does that mean? Like Twiggy Forest buys some teams. Like it doesn't.
It means different things to different people. You know,
The
way privatised money is in the IPL is different. You know, my previous background in rugby league, there was a mix of traditional member-based clubs and then clubs owned by privatisation.
Yeah, of course.
You know, Russell Crowe went in and bought the Rabbitohs, and there's other clubs that are Melbourne Storm. And so what I saw in my time is those clubs are run very differently and they have very different structures and very different thinking compared to a traditional club. Some good, some bad.
Yeah.
Some of those challenges, you know, were interesting with private owners compared to member-based organisations. So I'm not suggesting one's better than the other, but geez, worth a conversation.
If private ownership or private, and you're right, there's obviously different models with it, but if it is predicated on getting a return on money, that can't be good for Test cricket. You know what I mean? It's not raking in the bunts, Test cricket. But
but again, if you look at the whole ecosystem, you find where your opportunities are to leverage commercially and invest in other segments of the game.
Yeah, which is kind of what you're hinting at, right? Like
absolutely,
putting it to the side. Just on I mean, you know, you're the CEO of the Australian Cricket Association, not players' boss.
Not the other way around. Whatever.
Right. So just on the players, it feels like it's an episode that's kind of passed by for now. But you criticised Cricket Australia's handling of the David Warner, the latest instalment of the David Warner episode, where he's decided not to pursue the overturning of his leadership ban. There's a lot of nuance and detail in legalities and code of conduct stuff and whatever, but that doesn't suit my purposes. So, but he won't be pursuing an overturning of the ban. And you made a comment where you said, look, I think we can put a full stop on this one, and I think you meant that in the context of specifically pursuing that overturning of the ban. But like, most people listening to this will be like, but hasn't the can just been kicked down the road further on this? Because how are we to expect that David Warner won't, with some justification, that want to at least partially correct the record on what the hell went on in Cape Town? Yeah,
I actually do think it's got a full stop on it, because I mean, he was very frustrated at the end of that process, and for me, it was a simple process. It was like, should he have a leadership role in cricket or not? And it got kicked down the road for a long period of time until it got to a point where I said to David, the thing that you're disliking more than anything is uncertainty. So, and any athlete that I've worked with, cricketers, footballers, they hate the grey. They're all about black or white. So I said to David, let's just make a decision. So he did, and he feels a lot better now that it's done. But my comments at the time, my frustrations at the time, my criticisms at the time stand today, that it's a missed opportunity for cricket to not have David in a role leading inside BBL environments. As an example, there's a lot of young aspiring cricketers who could learn from him. Now, he doesn't necessarily need the title next to his name to do that, but I thought it was a good way for him to finish the back end of his career. But you don't win them all, so that's okay. We're not going to sort of sit in the gutter and wallow about it. We'll just get on with it.
I prefer a Prince Harry style. Like, I want him on Oprah. I want Netflix. I want a tell-all book. But I mean, the main question is, like, would Travis Head be player of the series if he knew more secrets?
Oh boy, I'm staying blank. I'm letting that go through.
That's right. Any other question? Privatisation, whatever.
That's a good leave. It's a good leave.
Well, while we're on hot button issues, you, according to reports a couple of weeks ago, maybe months ago, were leading or at least in favour of trying to rename what is colloquially understood as the MANKAD after comments from Vinu Mankad's family, Natisha, saying that it was disrespectful to be associated with something that is kind of polarising and hot button for people. But then his grandson, Harsh Mankad, a good tennis player too, for a time India's best, he came out and said, I'm getting right behind it. I like it. So should we be calling it the Zampa? What are we? Where are you now? Are you in knots?
I'm exactly the same. I was surprised we were even having this conversation. I was sitting around the Sydney Test, and I think it was the Sydney Test this year, and I was sitting around, and I heard someone say, this is good to have this debate. I said, this is not a debate.
Good is an interesting word for it.
There's no debate to be had. I couldn't understand why we're even having a debate. If the batsman's taking an unfair advantage at the non-striker's end, then run him out. Like, the bowler has to stay behind the white line to bowl within an inch of his life, and he gets a penalty if he doesn't. So why is the batter afforded this opportunity? So, mate, get him behind your line and we don't have to worry about it. So it's not, for me, it's not a debate. It's just run him out the non-strikers end.
Well, Rohit Sharma disagrees. So
yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Not everyone agrees with me.
But Todd, you did play, like you played, and by that I mean grade cricket.
Yeah, we all play. Yeah.
So top
level below state.
Yeah, 3 Test players having a chat here. Would you have ever executed? Who'd you play for? Who'd you play for?
Ramwick.
Okay. Would you have ever done it?
Never done it. Never seen it done. But
times change.
Nor mind you, when I was playing, we'll be playing T20 cricket where you're even worried about the bloke getting an advantage from that area of the field. Whereas now, you know, like there are millimetres in the game, and I think it's become something that is important. So, concept of like calling out that it's unfair or unsportsmanlike, well, it's not. The rules have changed, and it's a run out at the non-strikers end. So I didn't think it was a debate. I was just like, mate, just follow the rules.
I think like calling it the Zampa though is a bit disrespectful, don't you? Like I think
to the family,
to the family.
To MANKAD,
I don't care about MANKAD, but the Zampa, I think that's not right. That's not right.
It's last one from me. Todd, the other. I'll tell a story to kind of illustrate my question. Like the other night, we had the privilege of interviewing a couple of the players on the red carpet for the Amazon.
I saw
team.
you at that on the red. My son saw you guys. Yes, that's the great cricket.
Oh, right.
I go, you guys have got a cult following. What's that?
Cult. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's one of them anyway. That's my son.
And we had the privilege of chatting with the Australian Test skipper, or ODI skipper too, Pat Cummins, and we just said to him, look, I'm led to understand online that if you go woke, you actually go broke. So what's your cash position? And it was apart. We were sort of denied asking questions about Marnish's cheese toasty, and it was later explained to us that certain bodies are particularly sensitive about questions of sustainability as they relate to the Australian cricket team. How do you manage or navigate the views of players? I think Cummins' view on climate change is just an intelligent, normal one. With some other people's views that kind of stuff is too on the nose and too hot button.
Well, I mean, cheese toasties in the fridge from Marnus is a different one to climate change.
Equally important.
That's right.
Equally important.
Both were banned as questions for us. So I don't know. Anyway,
dealing with the big issues there. Look, it's an interesting one because in cricket, what I've been most impressed about is the knowledge, passion of players on particular issues or causes. And I'm an advocate for them to have a voice. There's an episode on the documentary with Uzi talking about multiculturalism and his journey.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's awesome, absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
And I was so fortunate to be sitting near him in Pakistan when he addressed the team about the importance of playing there. So I know that there's not just a tick the box for him. That's like deep inside him. Same as Pat on climate. Pat he looks at the weather patterns. He looks at cricket in bushfire season, and he is genuinely invested in this. This is not for him something that's going to finish his career. He'll take this through his whole life journey. So it means something to him. So there are players that have these things that they want to use their voice for greater good. And let's face it, Australian cricket has got a platform. So I say, like, all credit to them. Like, stand up straight, stand up tall, be prepared to have the courage of your conviction. Again, as I said at the beginning with this conversation, not everyone's going to agree with you. And that's what I said to Pat when he took the captaincy. People will criticise you. Get ready for it, because there's nothing more certain, particularly in Australia, they build you up to knock you down. That's how it works. But he's strong enough in his own conviction. He's got the courage to stand up and, have a position. I respect that. That's great. And we're going to have more of it. You're going to see the players continue to do this, and it will piss off some people, but we're going to stand up and stand up straight for what we believe in.
I mean, not for me, sort of keep politics out of sport, just sort of win your games.
He flies on a jumbo jet, so,
Just shut up, just fucking take your catches. Win the World Test Championship, win the Ashes, fuck off.
Shut up and dribble.
Todd Greenberg, thank you for taking the volley of questions there. Really
stuff,
appreciate
guys.
it, and it's really it's refreshing to speak to somebody in and around Australian cricket leadership who can speak so plainly and clearly about it. So we appreciate having you, especially in the studio as well.
Good on you guys. Nice to see you in person, and look forward to the next one.
Thank you very much to Todd Greenberg. Very good chat. Very good chat.
Love
Great
that
to have
shit.
him in. Great to have him in studio as well. Okay, India and Australia, that's all we care about for the next 6 to 8 weeks, I reckon. That's all we care about. And the squads for the first 2 test matches. Well, Australia's released their squad for the entire series, but India have released their squads. Let's just start with India. India have released their squad for the first 2 test matches, which are in, the first one is Pez in Nagpur, and the second one is
Delhi.
And the third one is
Dharamshala.
and the fourth one is
Ahmedabad.
Okay, so let's talk about some big outs. So Prithvi Shaw last week hit the second highest score in first-class cricket history in India, in Ranji Trophy history. He hit 379. He's not in the squad. Not enough. Not enough for Prithvi. Sarfaraz Khan, who plays in the same team as Prithvi Shaw, he has the strongest case of anyone in the history of red ball cricket to be in a squad. Just be in the squad. He's played, I think it's 36 games. He averages 80 in first-class cricket. In the last 2 seasons, he's averaged over 100. In the last 2 Ranji Trophy seasons, he bats down the odd, bats 5 for. Fuck, I can't think who he plays for. Rahane is the captain of that team. Prithvi Shaw opens the batting. Sarfaraz Khan bats 5. I can't think what the team is.
That's all right. So someone will help you in the comments.
Almost definitely. Anyway, he's not in. So you'd think, okay, Indian squad must be pretty good. They have picked Surya Kumar Yadav. He is in the squad. Ishan Kishan is in as the wicket keeper. They have reserve keeper, who I can't think top of my head.
Barrett.
Thank you. But Ishan Kishan is likely to play. So Jadeja is in the squad as well. He is likely to play. He is going to return in the Ranji Trophy on January 24 after he had knee surgery before the World Cup. Some of you may recall. And we spoke about Rishabh Pant last week. After his car accident, he is likely to miss most, if not all, of 2023. He's had 2 knee reconstructions already. He's also got another knee surgery within the next 6 weeks. So he's alive and he will play again. That is the good news, but it won't be for the most part of this year. Anyway, that as an aside. So India's squad is Rohit as captain, KL Rahul is vice captain. They got Shubman Gill, Pujara, I believe it's pronounced Kohli, Shreyas Iyer, KS Barrett, Ishan Kishan, Ashwin, Axar Patel, Kuldeep Yadav is in, Jadeja, Shami, Mo Siraj, Umesh Yadav, that's Boys Yadav, Jadav Unadkat, and Surya Kumar Yadav. That is their entire squad for the first 2 tests. Do you like it?
There's one big out there for the first 2 tests that from an Australian perspective is handy, but don't mind watching him. His name's Jasprit Bumrah.
Sourav Ganguly. Yeah, Bumrah's out for the first 2 tests.
First 2. So yeah. I'd imagine that's a big out. Do I like it? You know, it's interesting. I see runs and wickets. I see 3 spinners that frighten me, which is about all they need. But
I don't see much pace being played in this series. If I'm looking at that squad.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I mean, the Aussies seem pretty keen on pace in terms of their way of winning. But
England did as well. They played 4 seamers that one game.
But it is interesting, like around the traps, it seems to me that, of course, Indians are excited and they should expect to win on home soil because Australians have only won there twice, in ever.
Yes.
A series that is. But there seems to be among more, I guess, like objective observers, like, the idea that like India ain't all that either and that they're not playing particularly good cricket.
Yep.
Particularly with the bat. I think it's going to be more than enough against Australia, but the more they think about it as the game gets closer, and obviously by the time it starts, I expect Australia to win every session.
Of course.
But
that's right.
I see runs and I see wickets, and I think it's going to depend on the decks that are served up. I'm sure they'll be helpful, as is any home teams want. Mm-hmm. I think, as usual, Australia will like put their best foot forward, and probably just the bat will be too far away from that foot.
Some will spin, some
you
won't.
actually have to get out in front.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anyone who's crying out to be selected that's missed out. I don't think Prithvi Shaw's form until that those runs have been awesome. I think one day he's going to destroy us for several series. That day is not these first 2 tests anyway. I do think Rishabh is a big out for them because he just always seems to kill us. So there's a little window there for Australia, but you'd imagine it should be enough.
I've never seen Sarfaraz Khan play. I don't know anything about him. I was looking at those numbers and I was looking like people's reaction, including friend of the show, Harsha Bogle, being like, no one in the history of the game has banged the door down more.
Yeah, right.
So like, I'm going to take that as gospel for me.
He hasn't done it in Australia though, so
he hasn't done it against our boys. I
haven't heard of it, and he hasn't done it here,
mate. If there was a guy in Shield cricket who averages 80 after like 4 years and averaged 100 the last 2, I think he'd be in the squad.
It's interesting, you know, that they do back their veterans, India, don't they? You know, like sometimes against I'm just thinking if you're in the top 6 for India and you're playing at home, you want to be averaging 50 odd. You know what I mean? Like in some of those guys, in Test cricket, you want to be a run glutton. Some of them aren't always that.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. I suppose that's. I wonder if Sky is going to play. Okay, let's figure out their batting lineup. Okay, it's going to be Rohit and KL Rahul opening the batting. Pujara 3, Kohli 4.
I think so. Yeah.
Shreyas will bat 5. He's actually been probably the best batter in the last couple of series. Who bats 6 then? Jadeja?
Well,
nah.
Ishan Kishan might bat 6.
Okay, then.
You know, Jadeja 7.
Ashwin 8.
Or Axar, then Ashwin.
Oh, Ashwin's got the hundreds though. Ashwin's got 400s.
I don't know who bats. I mean, Axar can bat 2. I don't know who bats in front of him.
Okay, so then you got 8, 9, and then you got 2 seamers.
Yeah, that's Mo Shami, Mo Siraj.
Yeah. They haven't picked Shardul Thakur either. The Lord does
it get a big gig in India?
I'm not sure actually. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Lord.
Anyway, I mean, I suppose you look at those names and you're like, oh, there's enough there. I would have thought. I mean, I understand what they were saying.
Just give the ball to Jadeja. He's going to have his glasses on and it'll just flick it in and fucking all of us.
Oh, mate.
I mean, we're not going to have the soundtrack of Rishabh Pant keeping.
Yeah.
Like I'm kind of that's good, but I'm also going to miss it.
Okay, so I guess
how much noise does Kishan make?
Yeah, I'm not sure. And okay, so I was just figuring out if Sky's going to play. I think who would he play in front of? He'd have to be picked in front of one of the bowlers, perhaps, or they would pick him instead of Shreyas Iyer. But I think Shreyas Iyer has scored the most runs in Test cricket in recent
and it looks
times.
It looks flexible as well. I mean, Shub McGill's in there as well. You know, like he's never far away.
I mean, I was wondering if these wickets are going to be so spinny and fun that they might pick Sky just to be like, mate, try and score 40 off 10 balls and win the game. But I don't think that's the case. But it is interesting he's in the squad. I mean, he hasn't been around a red ball squad in a long time, so you'd think like if he's in the squad, why wouldn't they play him? I know. Something to think about. Okay, let's talk about Australia.
Oh, they might just be doing it in and around the boys.
In and around the boys?
I mean, Umesh Yadav's in the team, so.
He doesn't need to be in and around the boys, though, because he did get dropped from the ODI squad, though. Sky. So I don't know what's going on. Let's talk about Australia. Pete Handscomb's in. Todd Murphy is in. Todd Murphy's probably the most interesting one. He's uncapped. They like him. They like the look of him. Obviously, friend of the show. That's important for us. And his numbers are good. And is he now the second spinner? Is he now our second spinner? I don't know. Probably. He might be. But to that end, Adam Zampa had some comments last night, I think it might have been 2 nights ago. But he said he was apparently told that he was close 6 weeks ago. And he's obviously been not being picked and said he was very flat about it. I'm confused about that. I mean, Zampa's record against India in white ball cricket, generally speaking, is sensational. I mean, he's one of the best. Red ball record is no good. In fact, he's hardly played. He's hardly played red ball cricket.
He played one game a couple of months ago. Took 3 for and then none for in a game they lost. I just think about like what would Swepson be thinking? Who's like played red ball cricket for ages and like won games consistently for Queensland in the 4th innings. He's a leg spinner. He's also played Test cricket before. Yeah.
I would have thought he'd be I think Zampa's a good bowler, but I had no idea about his record in red ball cricket, let alone in the Test arena.
Oh well, I mean, Zampa didn't make it, so Swepson wouldn't be upset about that. I do wonder with Swepson. Swepson will probably be aggrieved that others have leapfrogged him.
Yeah,
but I do think that they just don't have a lot of confidence in wrist spin over in India. Which is probably why Agar gets the gig over Swepson for the ball that's turning that way.
Yep.
which I think Swepson could be aggrieved about as well. Zampa said, I thought with the way I've been going in international cricket in particular, this was going to be my opportunity. That was the messaging I got 6 weeks ago. Now I'm not. I'm very flat about it. I mean, I'd understand him being flat about it if he was told that he was going. You know what I mean? And then he was not. But I doubt selectors ever do that 6 weeks out. So it's hard to analyse the validity of his feelings, you know, even sitting here talking about his feelings feels a bit how you going.
Well, it's actually not dissimilar to India picking Sky, whose record in obviously T20 cricket is like he's just the best in the world and some of the best form anyone's ever seen over the course of the last 18 months, 2 years. I mean, Zampa's white ball form for Australia has also been sensational. I mean, guys do get picked in international cricket in other formats if they've performed at international level in a different format.
Like a Sky.
Exactly. So I guess I understand it from that perspective. But yeah, anyway, Australia's squad, so Stark is out of the first test. I think that's confirmed. He was also apparently going to be opening the bowling for Manly this past weekend with Morne Morkel.
Yeah, but that never makes sense because makes no sense. Morne's in South Africa. So I don't know. That was rumor.
Oh, yeah, of course he is. Yeah, of course he is. Anyway, so Australia's squad is Cummins to captain, Ashton Agar, Boland, Carey, Cam Green, Hanscom, Hazelwood, Head, Khawaja, Labuschagne, Lyon, Lance Morris, barebacks in. Todd Murphy, Matt Renshaw is in. Steve Smith is vice captain. Mitch Stark, Swepson, and Warner. Bareback Morris is an interesting one. They've taken him there. I think that is in and around the group, unless I get a fucking green seamer somewhere.
There's chat about the importance of airspeed, you know, like and reverse, and just having to have that speed to get it going reverse. I mean, I think that like Australia's blueprint for winning in India, which happened once in our lifetime, was built off pace, and it was where McGrath took the wicket, so did Gillespie, Kasparovich is involved. Warne bowled heaps of overs in a kind of defensive manner, and they, India paid a lot of attention to that while the other guys did the business. But I look at the Aussie squad. I think it's good. It's good enough. I don't think there's other guys sitting there going, "Oh, if you picked him, Australia's got the BGT in the bag." It's just a case of of how these guys play over there. The thing that gets the loins going for me in India is our bats against their spin and who can do it, and that's when I really start getting off about Steve Smith being a fucking master.
I think one shame is also just top of my head is that that Glenn Maxwell won't be in that squad. He obviously won't be there because he fucking snapped his leg at a birthday party. I think that would have been exciting.
True.
As a selection, I mean, it'd be interesting to see how long Travis Head gets compared to, Pete Hanscom is there, I think, specifically to play in Asia. I think Australia, I look at those names and I'm like, that's a really good cricket team. I don't think Australia's going to get absolutely, do I think that? I think that can be competitive. I don't think it can be a competitive series. I have absolutely zero expectations that Australia will even win a game. But as you say, Pez, that first ball bowls and it gets pushed to the offside for 4, I've been thinking, what the fuck is this shit? Everything must change at Shield level. We must focus on Sheffield Shield cricket now forever.
I also think they have a massive winning habit, Australia, as well. I think in a team, it's like that they're used to being inside the contest and winning all of their mini battles. So just over the course of 4 tests, it's going to be such a great test of technique. Big questions are like Cummins' captaincy under pressure will be interesting. I think Travis Head he's booked his spot because he scored runs on different decks. Yep. Can he transcend his technique? How's Marnus Labuschagne, who's one of the best bats in the world, going to go in these conditions for the first time? Yep. I think they're all really interesting. I think the bowlers know how to bowl over there, and they're going to be able to bowl dry, and it's going to be some serious back-breaking work for a while. Alex Carey's keeping is going to be important. Yeah,
good point. And, I'm really excited by actually.
They're going to play a good game. They'll park the bus Australia a little bit. Yep. They'll play tight and see what they can do.
Try and get into the third day. You know what I'm excited by, Pez? I think Steve Smith away from home is where you see the beauty of Steve Smith. Because I think in Australia, like Marnus and Travis Head and even Usman to a lesser degree, they're just so good to watch in Australia. But Steve Smith, like his like the amazement of Steve Smith is like his runs away from home, like the Ashes, of course, in 2019. But even last time we went to India 6 years ago now, it's like that's where I get my Steve Smith that's where I get off on Steve Smith away runs, And I think hopefully we get to see some from an Australian perspective. Anyway, India 4-0 over 8 days. All right, let's talk about the BBL, Nathan Ellis took a hat-trick. That's good. And Joe Clark hit the roof and got 6 for it the other night. And that's the BBL. All right. What do you want to talk about with the BBL this week?
There was other shit as well. I mean, it seems to have sustained its
It's been good this year. Yeah.
Has it? Okay.
Well, no, sorry. The mood around, like, publicly, the mood seems to be very good about the big.
Yeah,
the big
still Sixers Scorchies. Sixers knocked over the Scorchers last night. In a reasonably close game.
Yep.
But yeah, it is funny how it's the I guess the more controversial moments that seem to be the thing that you end up seeing and wanting to talk about. They're the things that you chat about. It's rarely like, oh, Tim Davis starting to see them well if you only stop getting run out.
Yep.
You know, like Nathan Ellis once again, class hat trick. You know, didn't even know. But it's like Nathan Ellis got a hat trick. The story with Nathan Ellis's hat trick is, did he know it was a hat trick? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's the way it gets presented.
Yeah.
Or like, Joe Clark hits the roof, gets 6 for it. That's like things like that are just these sort of cartoonish things that keep popping up in the BBL. That it's like it reinforces to Australians like, is this? It's real hit and giggle stuff. Like hitting the roof it's like a rule you make in the backyard.
It really is.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Especially when it literally went straight up.
Yeah.
It had no trajectory towards it, just literally up.
It's a silly rule. You can't give that 6. And I agree with Junior. It's like the umpire should be able to be like, if it's not going for 6, it's a dead ball. You know, that's it, or whatever.
Or you catch it one hand and it's out.
There are some cartoonish things I can get behind.
If you're doing a bat flip for who decides like what happens at the toss, then come on, let's go all the way with it.
Yesterday, David Warner shoved Matt Wade. Did you see that?
Yeah. A little bit of niggle.
Yeah, and it was an interesting little exchange. Like Tim David's at the non-strikers end for the Hurricanes. Chris Green's coming into bowl. He bowls the final ball of the over. Apparently there'd been some stuff happening before that, priors.
Bit of verbals.
Green bowls the darts one in. Wade blocks it. There's almost a run. There isn't. Green says something to Wade, and then it's on for about 5 minutes of just guys chirping deluxe.
Yep.
Tim Davis trying to pull Chris Green back. Chris Green getting involved in something with Matt Wade. It's an interesting optic for me. Just general styles, characters.
That's right.
I like that.
Yeah, different aesthetics.
Yeah. Then the next thing you see, Dave Warner's getting involved and he's kind of shoved Matt Wade.
Yeah.
It's presented by the commentary like they're having a laugh. Not how I saw it. That didn't align with the body language I was seeing.
Tim David afterwards said it was all fine. It was just.
I love when players do that.
Wade is just very competitive.
Yeah,
you know?
They always say something really glib and cliche. Oh, it's just a competitive bloke. There's just a bit of friendly banter out there.
Yeah.
I absolutely doubt it.
I fucking hate you and your entire family.
That's right. You know, I want to know. It would have been something.
We get such great access, but I don't care for like the guy at mid-on talking about the fielding positions and what they're trying to do. I want, like, if you're going to give me access, give me access. You know,
well, there was a good one with the Melbourne Derby was good. There was a fair few people there at Marvel, and the Stars gas trucked it again. Against the Renegades.
Bottom of the table, 6 points after 11 games.
Yeah, but they were in 3 or 4 different positions, which were tantamount to run a ball with plenty of wickets in hand.
They lose that game by 6 runs in the end. I think.
And it was gas truck, and Finch. Finch was providing basically a running commentary to Fox while he was doing all of these fields. They just kept going to him, and he did it with a play. And he said at the end of the game, he goes, "Howard, can I invoice you for this?" Because
Finch is great,
but it was funny. It was good access. To be fair, like he was going up, he was doing field placements with the bowler within earshot of Nick Larkin, saying, "Well, Larko doesn't have a slog sweep. He can only sweep. He's not going to slog sweep early, like in front of Nick Larkin." And then like how he's like, "Are you saying that? Are you saying that so he can hear you?" Then like Finch is running off, going, "Hang on, I got to get far away from him before I talk to you." You know what I mean? Like, so I suppose that's good. I mean, I can personally live my life without needing to be on the field, getting all that. And once again, the question is, where do the cams stop? Like, does it just go all the way? Is it tub cam? Is it cameras on every player, all audio? You can follow them all around their life, like fucking The Sims, you know, and that you're actually in control of them.
Take them into a pool, drown them.
That's a psychological test you know with The Sims.
Just build a wall around one of them, make them go insane. Gay. I was only 7 years old But I saw some things on The Sims, let me tell you.
You can only get money in The Sims by getting bonds. I didn't understand what bonds were, but I had heaps of money for a bit, and then all of a sudden the city was fucking bankrupt. I didn't get it. So you were kind of socially dysfunctional. I was financially dysfunctional. Obviously, it kind of checks out.
I was killing people.
Build a wall around them and see if they can get out.
Just watch them go insane. It's fucking 12 years old, just jerking off to The Sims. Yes.
While they're inside the floor.
You can't get out, can you? Fuck.
Anyway, the Taliban.
Yeah. Do you think do you think the quality of cricket is good this year, the Big Bash? Why do you sense that the people are into it this year? Is it because the tests weren't that interesting?
No, I do think.
Do you think the World Cup helped?
I think no COVID is big.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I do think we can conveniently ignore just how fucking how much that knocked everyone off their equilibrium. And just that kills the mood, and players' moods are killed as well. They're staying in hotels and all this sort of shit. People can be out and about, in masks and QR codes and shit like that. You can get a little bit more vibe going on in that scenario. Yeah. So I think it's probably the biggest one.
Yeah, that's true. That's the answer. I'm going to the tennis this week, which is nice. And last time I went, you had to wear a mask in the stands. Yeah. And these couple of weeks in Melbourne's usually fucking hot, nearly 40. And it's just really uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
All right, Amazon doco or Prime Video doco, the Test Season 2. You would have seen on TGC socials some promotion of that, and the comments have really given Pez and I life over that.
It's very much tickled us.
They're very funny, so thank you for that.
And there's only 8 to go.
Over different platforms though, so we'll spread them out.
Yeah, spread about.
Anyway, so I think so it's just 4 episodes, and I can't remember when we did the last. Oh, okay. So if you want, we went to the premiere last week in Sydney, Pez and I, and we went to the whatever color carpet you need it to be, where all the players came through, and we interviewed those people for about 15 or so minutes. You can find the audio for that. In fact, it's actually just the audio for that on Patreon. If you want to listen to that, we spoke to Cummins, Smith, Marnus, Travis Head, and anyone else we speak to?
Nathan
Lyon, that's right. Anyway, so you can find that at Patreon if you want that. Anyway, so it's been out for a week now. Oh, no, it came out on Friday, didn't it? Came out on Friday. And I think the main talking point, or the main headlines from it, are still around Justin Langer. Because the series picks up around Langer's still the coach, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Langer is still, the Ashes. Yeah, Langer is still the coach, and then Justin Langer is not in it. He's not interviewed it. He's not really in it in any way. But
there's a lot of overlay footage of JL.
Yeah,
he's not. And all the overlay footage, he seems to be extremely pensive. I don't know if that's an editorial decision, but
yeah, that's right.
But he's not interviewed for it.
That's right. And so I think just overall the series is it's about half the duration of the first series, which was filmed over about 18 months. This one's filmed over about 7 or 8. It goes from the Ashes, the Gabba Test match. For the Ashes, and it finishes in Sri Lanka. Yeah, that's right. So it includes the Pakistan series and then Sri Lanka series. Nothing to do with the World Cup or the most recent summer. Anyway, so it feels a lot more player-driven this time than circumstance, because I guess there's less interest in the team, inside the team in that regard. But I don't know. I mean, you've seen it a couple of times now. You've seen it at least once, haven't you?
I didn't.
You've seen it?
Yeah, I watched it once. Yeah. I mean, I guess at the premiere we had to watch it again.
Thoughts?
Oh, look, I for what it covers, I think it's good, and I think that the directors who do it are quite skilled, in the way that they present the story. I think it's naturally going to lack the drama of the first one, partly for reasons they can't control, which is that the team is winning easily. There is one loss in Sri Lanka, and there's some good shit out of that.
Heaps of good shit.
I think you always enjoy the behind the scenes footage. Quite often the stuff that's not where there's no there's no kind of deliberate expose of like a player and their family or the cool thing about them. Like those parts are nice. Those stories are nice. And there's particularly one with Usman Khawaja, which is really touching, I think.
Yep.
But it's actually more when there are things that are not being said, when like you're watching, for example, there's a great bit when, Glenn Maxwell's close to selection against Sri Lanka and I think it's Sri Lanka, and he's pensively watching Travis Head go through a fitness test, which the bin lid passes, and that's a pretty serious thing to be able to watch, and he's gutted, that he misses out. So look, I'm killing it for people, but I'm sure people have seen it or they'll see it anyway. You don't it doesn't matter that you say it or not. So I think some of that footage is really good. But tonally it is different, and I think it is a little bit more controlled. It is more about, building up the quality, the best foot forward of a lot of players' stories, and, JL is a naturally magnetic character and polarizing character in any soap opera, and without his voice in it, it's, you don't get that Michael Jackson popcorn gift stuff, whereas, but it is interesting, because one of the clips from the first doco from a couple of years ago seems to have surfaced online following the dropping of season 2 of JL in the sheds with the Aussie team after getting pumped by England in an ODI. Yes. Have you seen this? And I think somebody tweeted just saying like they can't believe he's a real person or something. Classic online stuff, I guess. And it is remarkable to me. This clip is like classic JL. He's like really giving him a serve. I think the Anzacs are mentioned. It's about respect, and it's that one where he says some of you aren't good enough to have theories. You got too many theories and stuff. It's just some JL stuff, early JL stuff. And it is amazing how he polarizes. There's a lot of people who will employ like LinkedIn language to say this is good leadership because he's setting directions, he's setting standards, this is what they needed, etc. The players are wusses and babies for not being able to take that. Then people on the other side are like, this is not good coaching. But like, and I'm just navigating this. Some say they can't watch it, but so his figure still hovers over season 2 a little bit, and I think a little bit. But I do think it's a doco worth watching. I think there's a number of great moments. At the same time, and I want to say one of my great moments. At the same time as it landed, there was this clip from people might have seen from Elon Musk talking about cricket. So if we could just play that one.
Fundamentally, I believe sports such as football, hockey, cricket. Actually, cricket's an interesting one because the whole sport is fucking awesome. It really is nuts. I mean, when you launch a rocket, that's pretty cool, but nothing matches the adrenaline rush you get while playing a perfect cover drive.
Interesting. Nothing matches the adrenaline rush of the perfect cover drive.
Not even launching a rocket.
Yeah.
Literally launched SpaceX.
Yeah.
Cover drive for me.
Adrenaline rush and cricket, I'm thinking that's like, I never associated it that much.
Yeah.
But then there's this moment in, it's starting to make sense to me because there's this moment in the documentary where Cam Green plays a sensational innings against Sri Lanka.
Man of the match.
First test.
Yeah.
He makes 80. It's also some interesting footage of him getting out in one game against Sri Lanka, I think, which I'll leave to people to watch. But, it's just to get a little peek into Cam Green. So he's a fierce competitor. He cares a lot. So people have to watch that. But he gets his 80, and there's this bit where he gets onto, a friend of mine sent me this, but I did note it at the time as well, and he's on the balcony with, a couple of the greats of the game, David Warner, I think champs him, and Steve Smith. And Steve Smith does something interesting to him in terms of like getting to know how the Aussies like to celebrate after a win. So could you just play this?
Young man, have yourself a line. Well done, champ.
I'll just play it again. Have a what?
Young man, have yourself a line. Well done, champ.
Just prior to that, Smith said well battered, young man. So just one more time. How they still?
Young man, have yourself a line. Well done, champ.
On the balcony now. What a fucking place the Aussie dressing room is. Post win, Sri Lanka. We always hear these apocryphal stories about how good the sheds are and how good the songs are. And it's starting to make sense because, Elon Musk is he's talking about adrenaline rushes and stuff. It's amazing that hasn't come out as the main story.
Yeah.
of this entire documentary is that you win man of the match. Well done, young man.
Yeah. The boys got the credit card out. They're chopping it up.
Wow. And he says, "Have yourself a lion," which is the name of the beer.
Ah, not what I heard.
Apparently.
All right, let's talk about the Australian women as they head into the Pakistan series, which starts on Monday. In fact, that starts today. Today is Monday, you stupid fucking man. In Brisbane, which then rolls straight into the World Cup over there in South Africa. But Meg Lanning has returned to the side. She spent time away from the game making coffees and washing dishes at a local cafe. Just to enhance the disparity between men's and women's cricket. Anyway, she's back, which is great news. I presume she's captaining the side. Do you know that? She must be. If she's in the team, she must be captaining it.
I think so. Yeah.
Anyway, so they're playing today in Brisbane against Pakistan, so that's good. And then, of course, the Women's Under-19 World Cup is happening right now. Australia and Bangladesh played the first game. Bangladesh beat Australia by 7 wickets. So I think with 2 overs to spare, chased Australia's total down. And so I think that Australia should be sent home. That's sort of my takeaway from that. I think it's a disgrace. Australian women losing any game of cricket is just not on. I don't think it bodes well for the future. I don't care if they're 17, 18, 19. Doesn't bother me. Send them home. I've seen enough. Disgraceful.
I've become very accustomed to the Australian women's team beating all comers.
You know,
anytime I see women in the canary yellow of Australia, I'm expecting W's.
And you'd be right to do that as well. I'm actually anxious for the team to lose a game. Like that's how much I expect them to win. I'm actually I'm worried about the World Cup. I'm worried if they don't win the World Cup.
That's how I felt at the 01 trip with the men.
That is abject failure.
Yeah.
Abject failure.
And it's amazing. It will happen. Do you think they can win until we die? Touch wood, obviously.
Well, because the women's IPL, the auction is actually in February.
So it's they're playing for...
They're playing for contracts. They're playing for contracts. But then the women's IPL, the first installment is going to, I think it's in April. Now, with the men's IPL, that started in 2007, didn't it? And then India didn't win anything for ages. And so there was a bit of in fact, they still haven't won a T20 World Cup since the IPL started. I think that's right. So there's this theory that people say the IPL is good for Indian cricket, but is it actually? And so I'm hoping that same thing haunts the women's Indian side if they start the women's IPL, and Australia can just keep winning forever. Because it's not, England, fine. But, apart from that, South Africa, New Zealand.
I'm hoping the advent of the women's IPL haunts the Indian women's team forever.
That's right. And so Australia keep winning forever. Because I worry, Pez, that you can't keep winning forever. Now, when it happens and be then that will look bad on me.
Why not?
That will reflect poorly on me.
Yeah.
I don't know how, but it just will.
I think it's nice that Australia can beat everyone and then bring Meg Lanning back.
Yeah, that is nice.
I think that's nice.
That's nice. Anyway,
Talia McGrath's vice captain.
If you listen to this and you're at the Under-19 World Cup and you're an Australian woman, I'm not talking to you.
Oh yeah, there was a MANKAD as well, non-striker run out in the Under-19s World Cup.
Oh, was that Sri Lanka and Pakistan? Pakistan against. I think it was one of the African teams.
Yeah, I think
it might be Namibia.
I think that's right.
Although I could have made that up. It's either Namibia or it's not. One of those two things.
Yep.
Something to think about. And then we also saw Dan Christian give a warning for a MANKAD recently. Now I'm thinking Australia.
Did you see it? Did you see it?
No.
Oh,
I just read about
it was Steve Eskenazi played at Tigers in Sydney. Middlesex captain, I think, Eskenazi. And
mainly the Sydney Tigers.
He played at Tigers. Yeah, they started him in twos, obviously.
Yeah.
Did they never met him? I don't know. Way after my time.
Okay, right.
He played really well last night. Couldn't get the score just home, but was 60 off 50 or some shit. But Christo warned him. Got to say, it was it wasn't like, it was pretty close. You know what I mean? For a warning. And Christo was going I don't care if it's half an inch, mate. I don't care if it's half an inch. Which so we all wish someone would say that to us. But yeah, it was a bit this was going to happen. We talk about this on a upcoming Patreon episode. I think we've already recorded, but it's going to get into some good areas. I want batters to head out of the crease. I want them to come back. Yeah, it's all fucking around.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like it's going to be a faux pas now to warn somebody or to attempt a run out if they're in their crease, right?
Yep.
But, you know, if it's just a run out, as many people claim, then it doesn't matter if it's close, then you're kind of obligated to go for it, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Every time, just to see.
At the same time, because of the proliferation of this dismissal, if you are the non-striker and you get run out that way, you are a fucking moron.
Yeah.
Like you are
big time.
a fucking moron.
Yeah.
Now, whatever. I've said a piece about it. All right. Hashtag AskTGC is brought to you by Ponting Wines, pontingwines.com.au. Use the code GETAFEW at pontingwines.com.au. How are you feeling about your wines? We've got a plethora of wines in front of us right here. We got the Pinnacle Shiraz, the 257 Tasmanian Pinot. We've got the Cab Sav, the Closer Play. We've got the Pinnacle Shiraz again, and then we've got the Mowbray Boy, the Pinot Noir. What have you had of those?
I don't know.
I think I've had all of them.
Really?
Yeah, I think I have. And the Pinot, I've been drinking a lot of Pinot over the last couple of years, but the Pinots are sensational. We actually had, just before Christmas, you and I had, we cracked open the Pinnacle Shiraz, didn't we?
Yeah.
We had a couple of glasses here. Was that during a Patreon episode maybe?
Yep.
And it is a delight. I don't know if I've had the whites yet, which are in our fridge just here in the studio. It's a little early to get that going, but hey-ho.
Hey ho. English shit.
That's right.
Lollipops.
That's right. Anyway, pontingwines.com.au. Use the code GETAFEW. And I think it's, I keep doing this every week. Is it 20% off?
Yeah, the case.
20% off your purchases using the code GETAFEW. All right. Hashtag AskTGC. Do you want to read this?
Sure. Anon writes in, do you feel Higgielka and Steve Perinar, a.k.a. Prime Everton under David Boys? Too niche? Question mark. I write to you today with a few questions about something me and a few pals have been doing. It began when my flatmate and I moved in together as two single men after going through lockdown breakups. When society opened up, we ventured into the world of Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, and some of the weirder ones I don't feel comfortable sharing right now. He's tall, 6'2", and charming, English. I'm rare, vegan, tattoos, mullet, and goofy, depressed. So despite not dating for years, we were surprised to learn we did quite well. One Sunday when I hadn't returned from a night out, my flatmate sent me a text asking, "Did you ton up?" Squinting into the aggressively bright morning light while trying to figure out where the hell I was and which bus I needed to get home, I responded with a picture of YJB, young Johnny Bairstow, raising his bat. Johnny, of course, being the cricketer most befitting of this conversation. We've all heard a story about that beautiful man. Indeed. This started the trend that I write to you about today. After a chop, one of us would send the other a picture of a cricketer celebrating a ton. Over time, a rule came into place that the match situation and style of chop had to relate to the cricketer and innings you chose.
Fuck, man.
For example, after a drink with a girl I'd fancied since I was a teenager but never gotten with till then, Stuart Broad lauds 2010, the fulfillment of youth potential that many thought would go unrealised. My flatmate and a girl being the last two awake at the hostel after a long night out in Italy. Matt Pryor, Auckland 2013, a belligerent rearguard effort that was hard to enjoy but a testament to stamina. Another friend getting shit-faced at a wedding with a bridesmaid. Cook's final test, the Oval, 2018. The eyes were gone, it was scratchy as hell, and he got over the line with some buzzers. Another unwritten rule of this game is that it's important to have a bit of humility. Anyone who claimed to be as easy on the eye as Ian Bell, as well-rounded as Sachin Tendulkar, or as powerful and destructive as Hayden would rightly be met with derision. Whilst none of us are slouches, it would be unrealistic to say we average 50 in tests. So here are a few questions. Is this whole essay just a long-winded way of saying, get a few? How do we as men, this sad, ever get women to sleep with us? From my description, do you think Adam Zampa and I would be friends? And finally, if you were both to compare your chop style to any current or former cricketer, who would it be? Anon.
Yeah, I think you and Zamps could be mates if you are a depressed vegan with tattoos and a mullet, and you're a bit goofy. Yeah, Zamps is pretty.
I don't think Zamps is like this is kind of...
He sort of welcomes all comers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, I mean, it says more about him. He's an open guy, I think, around that kind of stuff. I think if you read him this question, he would be like good but rare. Yep.
How do we, as men this sad, get women to sleep with us? I think you answered that question given that it was COVID, so I think just people were just desperate for any sort of connection. Is this whole essay just a long-winded of saying get a few? Yes, of course.
Yes,
I think you already answered your own question there.
And just by putting it in there doesn't take away from the fact that that's what you've done.
Yes. Now, I suppose you can get into like this style of conversation could get into some deep level of misogyny, and obviously that was the original name of this podcast.
A deeper level of misogyny.
Yeah. But part of me thinks like it's a nice way for men to bond over their pursuing of women in a romantic sense or just a physical sense. These guys like their cricket. They got some dumb shit going on with like just sending pictures of cricketers, and I mean it's pretty fucking lame. Don't get me wrong, but he knows that. Anon knows that. I wouldn't say that it'd be something I'd be doing, but I don't know. It feels like harmless fun. I think it's kind of nice.
Yeah, like I agree. I don't think anybody gets hurt by it, though. I suppose the other partner in the like sexual exchange might be like, I mean, it ultimately it's got nothing.
Why
really
are you sending a photo of Jason Gillespie?
Well, I'm going to say
in
like
Bangladesh.
It's a bit like it's a bit conquesty, but it's like it's also like
but that's what men do, don't they?
Well, do they have to? But like, why? Like I don't know. I'd imagine if you wouldn't really want your partner sort of seeing that, because I can't imagine it's particularly attractive. So you did what? Oh yeah, I do this thing like I sort of like you say, like Ian Bell plays cricket, right? And he's really good through the covers,
right?
Like and your partner's like, yeah, cool. Well, it was good. All the best. Nice
but maybe at the same time she's sending a picture of Danny Wyatt at Birmingham or some shit.
Yeah.
Against Pakistan, or do they play each other? I don't know. So I don't know. Maybe these people are just finding each other. And finally, if you were both to compare your chop style to any current or former cricketer, who would it be? I would say Dean Elgar.
Yeah. Mine would be Ian Healy when he was really poking his bum out at the end. Always contributes and one or two memorable knocks.
Yeah, Dean Elgar for me, getting strangled. See you next week.